On July 7th, Hyperkin Labs released the Retron 77, a device that promises to bring the Atari 2600 library to a larger demographic of gamers. In today's review, I'm going to break down why we need this thing in the first place, what it does well, and what could be improved in future Atari clones. So to start things off, why should we even care about this box? To keep things simple, the Retron 77 promises gamers the ability to, well, keep things simple with Atari 2600 games. If, like me, your main display lacks a coax input and or an analog TV tuner, the easiest way to get a picture out of an Atari VCS is using an adapter to pass your RF signal from a cable that looks like composite to an end that looks like digital coax, and then through a VCR to be pumped out as an actual composite signal. After all that, you're still left with an actual composite picture, which looks like trash on a modern TV, even if you also run it through a line doubler and or upscaler. The Retron 77 does away with all those extra accessories and gets you a clean HDMI picture straight to your television. All of those cheap carts sitting in your local game store don't seem so daunting when you know a $70 device can get you up and running without any fuss. And when I say cheap, I mean incredibly cheap. For less than $100, including this thing, I was able to build a relatively strong foundation for an Atari collection. I snagged 23 Atari games, all with instruction manuals, for right around $30 cash. And we're talking about a newly bought collection that includes legendary games like Space Invaders, Pitfall, Adventure, Yar's Revenge, Missile Command, Asteroids, Berserk, and more. In fact, I think the best audience for the Retron 77 might be those that, like me, are new to the world of Atari. For a low cost of entry, Hyperkin's product provides an experience that's pleasant to the eye, mostly lag-free, and compatible with a large portion of the library. Unfortunately, the Retron 77 is not compatible with every title and accessory. And that brings us to what it could do better. While most of the Atari 2600 library works on the Retron 77, some of the notable titles don't. Almost every review up to this point has mentioned that Pitfall 2 doesn't work from the cart, although the ROM loaded from an SD card seems to work just fine. John Hancock also pointed out that while the Pac-Man port works, Burger Time is not compatible.
This sumbitch ain't got Burger Time neither.
Beyond the scope of software, the Retron 77 seems to have some compatibility issues with common accessories. While the majority of the official Atari controllers work with the 77, the original VCS also worked with a different set of controllers. Since the Sega Genesis shares the same controller port as the Atari, Genesis controllers work just fine with Atari's machines. While a few YouTubers didn't have any problems with the Genesis controllers, I didn't have the same luck. I experienced unusual and disappointing results when I tried to use both the standard and 6-button controllers with the Retron 77 during a RetroTech Select live stream. Luckily, the controller provided with the system is fairly usable, even if it is a little light. They've even made a few improvements on the original design. Thanks to contoured edges on the back end, the new controller is kinder to your hands, and the dual button layout is a nice addition for us lefties out there. My last major beef with the Hyperkin machine is the hardware itself. Rather than opting for an FPGA approach, like RetroUSB's excellent NES clone, the AVS, Hyperkin decided to rely on software emulation for the Retron 77. As good as the emulation is, this still means that we aren't getting completely accurate gameplay, and that we're essentially shelling out for a focused, stripped-down PC experience with retro window dressing. With the Retron 77 being what it is, I would have at least hoped for a better user interface. There's almost no UI to speak of, and there are strict limits on how many ROMs can be loaded onto the device. Still, the emulation approach means that we're able to take advantage of things like save states, and Hyperkin even approximated the frying glitches some old school Atari players would achieve by jostling the cart around while the system was on. All in all, it's hard to complain too much when Hyperkin is the only player trying to bring an HD experience to the Atari game space. For $69, you're still getting an HDMI ready device that plays almost all of the original 2600 carts with decent accuracy. If you're new to the Atari scene and you're looking for a way to get started without expending a ton of effort, the Retron 77 is a convenient place to start, with room for improvement. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a good one.